Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, January 2nd, 2025. Okay, we're first going to go through our administrative session. We need to approve the minutes from Thursday, December 10th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
Brian moves.
Seconds.
And everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second, approval of secretary fees. Can I have a motion to approve?
Brian moves.
Lisa, second.
Is everyone all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, I guess we're gonna start our public hearing. This is my second time chairing, so a little patience if I, what do we do with seats? There's some people here who don't have chairs.
There's some stacked in the back, it
We
looks.
don't have any room.
Oh, I see.
We got here.
It's
39.
Where are we at? So what happens? 36 on the.
Oh, 36. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we're
Okay.
full.
Okay, so if anyone else comes in, what procedurally, what do we do?
Don't call the fire marshal.
Okay, since this is on record, we will call the fire marshal.
Well, I can't put out any more seats, so we're just gonna have to, I can talk to them and let them know that if people leave, they can come in, but they'll have to wait out into the hallway.
Okay, and if people, maybe what we could do is if people are here for I think a lot of people are here for applications number 6 and 7. So if we have people come in for earlier apps, maybe some of you who are here for that be willing to go outside until those are over. Does that make sense?
It would.
Okay,
Um,
so at this point, we don't have to have anyone leave.
So I've got everybody here already for the other applications.
I think though, so if we get anyone else, it may be for this last application and we could just ask them to wait outside.
Okay with that, Attorney Cooper? Sure. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
There's 2 applications.
For the
Right.
people I'm looking for, we'll take it up when it comes to that.
You can go out there.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna read to you our call to order. First, when a matter is first called, the applicant or his or her agent will present the case. At this time, originals of any petition should be given to the clerk Jody. Copies of the petition should then be distributed to the board members. After the applicant's presentation, all interested persons in favor of an application will come forward and speak. After those in favor have spoken, those in opposition will then be heard. The applicant or his or her agent may then address the comments made by those in opposition. Second, this meeting is being recorded as required by state law. It's important that we be able to understand the recording. Therefore, only one person may speak at a time, and anyone who speaks must come forward, speak clearly, as our recording device is located in the ceiling of our room, and give his or her name and address. We welcome the comments of all interested persons, but we must exercise discretion in making sure your comments are on point. And if you're too far off point, we reserve the right to restrict your comments at any time. Third, applications and interested persons may remain in attendance after the hearing for the executive session to find out what was decided, or you may call the zoning office tomorrow morning to find out. Please note that the granting of the application has to be a supermajority, meaning 4 yeses say yes. Fourth, if an application for a waiver is granted, the waiver is not valid if the notice isn't recorded. The applicant must bring a check on the amount of $60 made out to the town of Fairfield to the zoning office on Wednesday or later, following the meeting. The proper recording of the notice of filing. Any waiver involving construction requires an as-built prior to an issuance of a certificate of zoning and a certificate of occupancy. Okay, we are ready we're gonna go to our first application. Our first application is 54 Sterling Street, map 657, parcel 165, petition of J&B Sons Home Improvement LLC for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the sum of two line setbacks from currently 20 feet, from 20 feet, currently 19.4, proposing 19.4. Permission to construct a second floor addition with attic above, premises B zone. Will the applicant step forward?
Thank you.
Right there, and just name and address.
Hello everyone, Happy New Year. Name is Jeff Baptiste, address 54 Sterling Street. And we are applying for a variance. The existing structure of the house prior to the current zoning setback requirements already encroaches the setbacks by only 7 inches, which makes the dwelling previously non-conforming. And we're requesting a variance to add an addition of a second floor with that.
So your hardship is,
I'm sorry,
what did you say, a non,
it's non-conforming.
okay, okay. Would like to ask any questions? No questions? Okay. Seeing no questions, is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak in favor of this application or online? Seeing none, is there anyone in the room who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Online here. Okay, no. Okay, we're going to close this. Okay, thank you. Okay, our next application is application number 2. We are going to move to the end because the applicant is a Fairfield school teacher and she's not out of work yet. So she will be zooming in later, correct?
Yes, thank you, sorry.
So we're gonna move on to number 3 on our agenda, which is 887 Riverside Drive, map 139, parcel 259. Petition of Heidi Schmetz for various zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to legitimize an existing deck for the increase in lot coverage from 20%, currently 27, proposing 27. Permission to remove a rear deck in order to access a buried oil tank that must be removed and to rebuild on the same footprint, premises A zone. Will the applicant come forward, please? State your name and address.
My name is Lowell Halverson. I live with Heidi Schmeck, 887 Riverside Drive. In short, I need to remove an oil, there's an oil tank underneath the rear deck. You can see it there on the map if it zooms in a little bit. In order to get to the oil tank, you've got to remove a portion of the we've got to remove a portion of the deck. And I've actually done that and done some tests, and it turns out that the thing has leaked. So now I'm in a remediation situation where I need to remove the dirt. In order to do that, I have to remove the entire deck and rebuild it. The tank has been abandoned because it's touching the house. It can't be removed. What I'm looking to do is to demolish the remainder of the deck, remove the soil, and then put the deck back. That's what I'm looking to do.
Okay, okay. Does the board have any questions? Please stand.
How many square feet less would the deck be if you kept it?
Haven't done the numbers either, so I don't know. Much smaller, I would imagine about half, because it's from 20 to 27%, so, you know, I'd probably take it down to where it would be probably not a deck, but more like a ledge.
Okay, because you have your house and garage.
It's a non-conforming lot, right?
Right, it is a non-conforming lot.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you had done that.
Deck has been there since the house was purchased in the mid-90s.
Right, that's the question I had.
So just as a clarification, it was there when you purchased the house?
Yeah. Actually, I thought it was already permitted. I thought you guys kind of knew about it already, but apparently this was not the case. Yes, it does. I thought this was simple, but it turned out to be less than.
Anyone
But I wanna remove the soil. In order to do that, I gotta remove the deck. It's as plain and simple as that.
Is the tank now empty?
Yes. I pumped out house, been filled in with stones. It is technically remediated.
Okay,
The tank is remediated,
Right.
but not the soil. They wanna
Exactly.
make that distinction.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to come up and speak for this application or online? And is there anyone who is here to speak in opposition of this application? Okay, that being the case, we're gonna close this hearing.
We need the original signature page back, Joe.
Oh, that's what I was,
That's-
yeah,
that's
they
the
were just
original.
passing it down so everyone can see it. I know. Why do they have that? Okay, we're gonna move on to number 4, 320 Rucuzzi Avenue, map 79, parcel 749. Petition of Sean and Melina Murkoff for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the sum of the two sideline setbacks from 20 feet, currently 17.8, proposing 17.8 feet. Permission to construct a second floor addition with attic above, premises B zone. The applicant can step forward and take their name and address.
Happy New Year. Sean Murkoff, 320 Rockets Avenue. In short, actually, well, little backstory. It's taken my wife and I 5 years to find a house. We thought the spring market went on to be our year, and then we all know that happened. And I found the house because we moved in there 5 years ago. It was my parents' investment house, and I just, after 25 offers, told my dad I'd like to buy the house off his hands. And it's a pre-existing non-conforming house when it was built. We are looking to add a second story with a attic above, and we're looking for a variance. So that's
Anyone have any questions? Well, thank you. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to step forward and speak for this application or online? Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak in opposition of this application or online? That being said, application is closed.
I'll take care of it.
That's all right.
Okay, I'll move on. The next application is 29 South Pine Creek Court, map 231, parcel 109. Petition of Catherine Bigham and Demir Babbitt for a variance of the zoning regulations 5.2.4 to reduce the sideline setback from 20 feet, currently 18.2, proposing 18.8. Permission to construct a second floor addition, premises C zone. The application step 4 applicant, thank you.
That's right.
Send it back.
You please state your name and address, sir.
Good evening, my name is Tassos Kokoris. I live at 28 Chandy Lane in Westport. I'm an architect, and for full disclosure, the owners of this property are my daughter and her fiance. We're proposing, the existing building is a pre-existing non-conforming situation. And we're proposing to add a small dormer on the street side within the building envelope, as well as a small porch fronting the street. Because the house is pre-existing and there is no other place on the house to make a small addition, the addition itself is less than 100 square feet on the street side. That's really the only place that we can put in, and the purpose for that addition is a nursery. That's the application.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Just in like one sentence, the hardship is,
The hardship is the house is pre-existing non-conforming for setback, for front setback.
Which he's ameliorating.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
So, it says the current setback is 18.2 and it's gonna be 18.8. You're taking 6 inches off the house?
No, yes, and the reason for that is that the house was constructed with brick. And the brick is outside the bearing wall on the street side. We're building on the bearing wall, not on the brick. And the brick is about 6 inches. The brick and the space behind is about 6 inches.
So it will still be 18.2, but your addition won't get any closer than, there's actually 6
It'll
inches
actually-
behind.
A little bit behind, correct, yes, yes.
Is that Joe? Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to speak for this application? Online? Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Online? Okay, this application. We're gonna move on to number 5. 29 South Pine Creek Court, is that right?
No, you just did that. We're on 6.
Went so fast. Wow. Okay,
Just, did you want to do the lady that you skipped, or is she not ready yet?
she's not here yet, but thank you.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna start, there's 2 applications which we're gonna do separately for the same residence or application. So we're starting to start with number 6, 1313 Pequot Avenue, map 281, parcel 20. Petition of the Sasquatchog Association for Southport Improvement, Inc. to reverse or modify a decision of the zoning administrator, premises R3 zone.
There's Evans who are the neighbors next door. Somehow accommodate that.
Well, if someone would be willing to leave and then come back, oh, you have room.
Something else, but they. Yep.
Someone out to get
That's an office. Yeah, yeah.
Macaroni.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. I'm Kevin Dunker, I'm an attorney practicing law here in Fairfield. My office is at 2228 Black Rock Turnpike, Fairfield. I'm here representing Sea Lodge Inc. Sea Lodge Inc. has two applications before you, as the chair noted. Both applications are seeking the same relief, namely the ability to make necessary repairs to the existing Sea Lodge building without the necessity of elevating the building to meet FEMA requirements. We're taking two different approaches to this, both with the same end goal in mind. I have a packet of photos, et cetera, which may help explain this.
So, thank you, Attorney Gumper.
There's been a great deal of interest in this matter. I do not have any petitions with me, but I know at least 3 were filed with Matt in the office for people next door, the Evanses, for Mr. Burton, and for sorry, just skipping my head there. Mr. Giannone filed one as well. Also, the lady across the street, colleague Barry, has sent an email saying that she sent a petition into the office on December 30th, and I don't know that the.
Well, if you see the scrolling, we have probably about,
We have about 25 or 30.
about 25
I have
letters.
many letters.
And we have some petitions also.
And some petitions, yes, okay, so as long as you're aware that we do have them, that's why I do not have the originals. Most of what was here has been filed with the office. Just a little bit to start off with, the Sea Lodge is well-established, well-loved institution in Southport. It's a very small beach club. It's located at the eastern end of Southport Beach. And you can see the first 3 pictures in the packet that I gave you are 3 different views of the Sea Lodge. You can see what it is in the event that you were not familiar with the building. This building has been a part of Southport, or this Sea Lodge has been a part of Southport for a long time. Property is owned by the Sasquatch Association. Sasquatch Association bought it in 1900. They built a 2-story beach pavilion on the property in 1901. And that beach pavilion was destroyed in a storm in 1950. I think the big picture in there is a picture of the old beach pavilion, black and white. And if you look closely, you can see that it actually dates from horse and buggy days. The current building was built in 1951 to replace the destroyed 2-story pavilion. It was designed by Roswell Barrett. With me today is Jack Franzen, a local architect, significant renown. He will discuss how fortunate it was that Roswell Barrett, who was an architect of significant renown and very familiar with how to build a storm-proof building, was the designer of this building. The proof is in the pudding. This building stood for 73 years to date. It has gone through hurricanes, nor'easters, major storms, and even superstorms without significant damage. What we're hoping to do today is the purpose of these applications is to maintain the building in its present state. So it's unlike most petitions you got, like the 3 you had so far, all people wanting to change their building. These applications are to not change the building, keep it the way it is. The reason we're here is that the building is on 24 timber pilings. You can see that in your pictures. And if you look at the 3rd or 4th picture, down in the lower corner of the 3rd picture, you can see how deteriorated some of these pilings have become. They need to be replaced. And the proposal that's before you and would be done if this is allowed is that the pilings 8 in the front, 6 in the front, 2 farther back, a total of 8 would be replaced by new pilings. And another 6 would be reinforced at a later date. Question is, if we do that work, do we have to elevate the building? The question comes down to basically, is it a substantial improvement? And I'm gonna go through the regulations that's on section 32.5C. And if you look that up, you'll see that there's a typo in the regulations, there's 2 Cs, but this is the one that's really the third one down. And it says that in the event a building is located in a coastal high hazard area, high hazard flood zone, and there is a substantial improvement to the building, then the building must be brought into compliance. High flood zone, and the question is the work that we're going to do substantial improvement? That is a defined term in your regulations. It's 32.8LL, and that defines a substantial improvement as work done on a building that cost more than 50% of the assessed value of the building. The work that we're going to do is clearly going to be costing more than 50% of the assessed value of the building. The building, I think, is assessed at $37,000, and I think, roughly speaking, if we painted it, we would be exceeding 50% of the assessed value. However, the same statute, the same regulation, which is your regulation, has a major exception. It says substantial improvement is not something that's done to a building that's on a list of historic buildings, and the work will not preclude the building from being continued on that list. We have a letter which is part of the packet here, not this packet, but part of the application from the State Office of Historic Preservation, which says that this building has in fact been on the list since 2021. It's on the State of Connecticut list of historic places. So element 1 of the test is perfectly satisfied. Same letter from the State Office of Historic Preservation says the work that we propose is not going to preclude the building from being kept on the list. In other words, it'll still be on the historic preservation list if you do this work. It's seeing that plain language of the regulation, which is your zoning regulation, then this is not a substantial improvement, and we do not have to comply with 32.5C. I made that the whole thing is whether this is or is not a substantial improvement. I have requested a determination from the zoning office as to whether this is a substantial improvement. The zoning office says yes, contrary to what I think is the very plain language of the regulation. Point out a couple of things you should be aware of. Number 1, this regulation is based on a FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Act regulation. FEMA manages and administers the National Flood Insurance Program, and it has a requirement, says that if you, in order to participate in the flood insurance program, and Fairfield really participates in that program, it's got a lot of houses there, you must have certain regulations. And they prescribe the regulations, and word for word, the regulation is exactly what Fairfield has adopted. So the FEMA regulations have this exception built right into it. And I've given you 3 different FEMA publications, each one of which explains the second. On each one, I've highlighted the language where it says if it's a historic building, if it's on the list, and you're not going to be precluded, if the work is not going to preclude it from continuing on the list, is not required to, it is not a substantial improvement, and it is not required to meet the elevation regulations. Connecticut, when you are acting here as interpret a zoning regulation, the law is very clear that first thing you do is you look at the plain language of the regulation. And plainly, when you read the regulation, it says that this is not a substantial improvement because we met all requirements to be exempt. We are exempt. And the Connecticut Supreme Court's gone further. It says that if you think that this regulation is ambiguous, you have to resolve the ambiguity in favor of the landowner. In this case, the applicant. So, a couple of things I want to point out. The owner of this property is Sasquatch Association. Sea Lodge Inc. is a small operation, small nonprofit club. Leases the property from Sasquatch. Very closely related. Many of the members of the, but not all, but many members of the Sea Lodge are also members of Sasquatch. Sasquatch is much bigger than the Sea Lodge. There's only 80 members. So that is the first issue for you to determine whether or not this regulation even applies to us. We think we are exempt. We don't need a waiver, but nevertheless, we are applying for the waiver. We're not applying. We're asking you, first of all, to make this determination whether or not we need a waiver. And then we're going to, on the unlikely event that you said we do need a waiver, we're asking for that in our next application. A lot of repetition of what I've said, but I hope you understand, we have to have a separate record for each application. Okay, and I told you Mr. Franzen will speak, but I think he'll speak later in connection with the variance application, unless you want to repeat yourself. We'll try to keep it quiet. And I think almost everybody here is interested in this matter and is in favor of you somehow coming to a resolution that this does not have to be elevated in order to stand. Yes, Mr. Avalon?
No, I'm waiting for her to say it's time to ask a question, and I'm gonna ask the first if I'm allowed.
Okay, thank you. So before, so this is our discussion with the applicant. At this time, just so I wasn't really aware, just if we have questions of the zoning enforcement officer, this is the time to ask him. Because when we go to make our decision later, he can reiterate what we've already asked, but you can't ask him anything new. So if you want to understand from the perspective of the zoning enforcement officer why this decision was made, this is our time to ask. Please.
Literally my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so would you like,
Thank you for making that clarification.
Okay, would someone like to go first?
Sure,
Okay, Brian.
I will go first. So Matt,
Right.
if you can.
Just so the public understands, this is Matt Decker. He is the zoning enforcement officer for the town of Fairfield.
So the decision or the requirement that you set for the association for the structure was founded on what exactly? So what was how'd we get to this point based on what you required?
My letter to go to them?
Yeah.
They had made a request to do renovations to the structure that would exceed the allowance that they have for a cost cap based on how our calculations are done. We sent them a letter indicating that they'd also indicated in regard to the historic value or the historic nature of the structure, which is not a local, it's a state. And the state deemed, as well as DEP, deemed that by lifting the structure, which would be required for exceeding your 50% allowance of improvement, would not take the structure out of being a historic nature. It wouldn't take it off the list, and it wouldn't harm in regard to how my letter was stated. The exemption for substantial improvement for historic structures exempt otherwise required improvements such as elevation, if those improvements would negatively impact the historic characteristics of the subject structure. In this case, it is determined that the elevation would not impact the historic nature of the building and is therefore not exempt. That's what I'm doing first.
Okay, so you inquire to the state responds that so the crux of the matter is he's claiming the exemption based on the historical and the fact that if they do this and they keep it at the existing elevation, it will not take it off the list. Your statement and the state came back and said that if you elevate the structure, if you actually bring it into compliance, it will also remain on the list.
Correct.
negating the exemption.
And I would like to speak to that if I could.
And
And
give,
maybe it would-
Yeah, no, I think that's-
Would you think maybe
Yes, I think it'd be
dialogue would
better to
good?
have the dialogue, if you
Well,
don't
that's what
mind.
I think. So if you, I think you have Matt's letter before you, which he says, the last paragraph says, to interpret the regulation as you, meaning me, suggest would exempt improvements for structures that have no impact on historic value, while not exempting those improvements which would negatively impact historic value. That's exactly what I'm arguing. That's exactly right, and I believe it's exactly what the statute says. I mean, the regulation says. Someone at the state worked some additional language, maybe that it said something like, if you made these changes and it would still be on the list, then it is a substantial improvement. That's not what the regulation says. Regulation says it doesn't matter whether down, doesn't matter. What does matter is is this property historic? Yes. Will this regulation, will this improvement to the property take it out of historic? No. We're exempt. That's all it says, and no matter how you twist and shake, you can't get away from that. This is not any kind of attack on Matt. I understand he's relying on what the state has said, but I think the state in this case is wrong. And I've asked the state if they have any support whatsoever for their position. And the answer I got was that FEMA regulations are murky. Well, if they're murky, then they're ambiguous, and ambiguous regulations by our state Supreme Court law, you interpret that regulation in favor of the landowner. So it is exempt.
When you say, just to clarify, when you say the state, are you talking to DEEP?
Yes,
Okay, so you're talking directly to the environmental protection.
yes. And so you understand, DEEP really has nothing to do with this, but there's a DEEP person who is the FEMA administrator for the state of Connecticut. And they take this.
And the information that the zoning enforcement in Fairfield is receiving is from DEEP telling them this is.
This is the way DEEP looks at it.
Okay.
Yes.
Go
Or
ahead,
there's
Brad.
one person that DEEP looks at it. Again, I asked for any kind of precedent, any kind of regulation, any kind of rule anywhere. All I can find is on this subject are the three things I've gotten you from FEMA itself, saying how this regulation gets to be applied.
so in a plain text reading, my interpretation leans towards council. My question for you from your examination of the property from the situation where it sits. If they can, or if the improvement's done while remaining at current elevation, is safety significantly affected negatively, or do we have any reason to think that?
Safety is not determined by my office. That falls under the jurisdiction of the building department.
Just want to remember.
Yeah, our requirements are to follow the guidelines that are bestowed upon us by FEMA and the regulations for the insurance coordination regulations as well that Fairfield has adopted to provide discounts to all residents that are within the flood zone. And by not elevating a structure that exceeds the 50% value of the structure itself, and to issue a permit to have them do that could jeopardize the town's agreement with insurance coordinator for flood insurance.
And that was stated explicitly by DEEP to you.
It's not necessarily from DEEP, it's from FEMA.
From FEMA, sorry.
We have the discount that we have is a 5% discount for, I believe it's 5% for all flood insurance policyholders. And that's done through our requirements to keep structures that exceed their cost limit to become FEMA compliant. And if they don't, that could jeopardize our standing with them.
Anything else, Brian?
I have a question for Mr. Decker, just to clarify, the regulation refers to 50% of the market value, and Mr. Gumper said the assessed value, so which is it?
Well, he's referring to, his market value refers to the dwelling structure, which is the assessment. It's the
Assessed value.
Not the total property with the building. It's only the building
I
itself.
know it's just the building, but it's the appraised value of the
It's
building.
it's the higher of the two, which is the appraised.
Appraised value, not the assessed value.
Yeah, I said the wrong thing. It's
Right.
the fair market value as determined by the assessor, not the assessed value.
Exactly.
So it's not the 70%, it's the full 100% value,
Okay, so
which
then,
is pretty low
well,
still.
this is my question for you. Did you have any outside appraisal done?
We would, no, the cost of this, so it's pretty expensive.
Sure.
It's around $100,000. We know that we're not going to get a value of this building. That's
No private appraisal will get them above.
$200,000.
No private appraisal will get them above that number.
Okay, that's the, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
we
put that
thought
out there.
was no possibility of getting it up
Okay,
there.
I just wanted to make sure that was out there. Okay, and then, does the owner carry flood insurance because they have to or because they choose to?
They would carry flood insurance because they choose to, because there's no mortgage, they're not required to. And that's one of the other things you'll see in the FEMA requirements is historic buildings are twice blessed. Number one, they can do substantial improvements without elevating. And number two, they get a break on their flood insurance. FEMA likes historic buildings. They like them to stay the way they are.
So will the cost of the flood insurance change with this proposed improvement?
I don't believe so.
But it's optional and the owner has opted yes.
So far, the owner has opted to. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just to make sure I understand this petition as opposed to the next one, you're asking us to reverse the decision of the zoning enforcement officer who said that you can't move forward because of regulations, basically, is that like?
Basically, what Matt is saying is that this is what we propose to do is a substantial improvement. And we're saying, no, it isn't. It's specifically exempted regulations.
So I have one last question.
Are you all set?
For the moment.
I have one last question. Let's just say that, let's stipulate that Matt is acting on the best interest of the town and the residents within this insured district. Because I take that for granted every day. Does the association or does this single structure find it reasonable to bear the burden of potentially putting at risk the discount of FEMA for a difference of raising or not raising the structure? In other words, if it were to be required to raise the structure or granted this variance in some way and it caused a detriment to the community, does this association or does your client find that a reasonable outcome of the situation?
Good question, and I would say that it's an unfair question. The regulation is what the regulation is, and all you can do is decide what the regulation says with respect to this particular applicant. And if the regulation doesn't apply, it doesn't apply, and I don't see how FEMA can take it out on you. However, you'll see that we are still asking you to. It's a variance, even if you determine that this is exempt, we're also going to ask you for a variance in the very next application. I know it's maybe not strictly necessary, we'd like you to do that so that there could be no doubt about it. We know that if you get a variant, if you grant us a variance, that FEMA will have no problem.
Anyone else? No?
No, sorry, I have one more question.
Okay.
If the owner opted not to carry flood insurance, and maybe it's a question for Mr. Decker, if they opted not to carry flood insurance because they don't need to, would that affect the FEMA rating that they're doing?
It could,
It still could,
plenty of people that don't carry insurance.
and so that's all taken into account.
So my question is, obviously Deep is the one person or the many people you're talking to at the state of Connecticut are pretty vested in their decision here, which is that this has to be raised. You think you have two applications. One is the reversal of the decision and second is the hardship. If the outcome of one of them grants you the right not to lift the building, do you have any concerns about that going forward? Could they step in and disagree with the zoning board of appeals?
Not directly. And if you grant the waiver, which is the next step, this is not an application for a variance, this is an application for reverse and modify.
Right.
You don't have to show hardship or anything on this particular part. Sure, I know you're used to doing one thing, this is a little different. Now, if you were to grant the variance, there's no trouble with us. It won't affect anything.
But if we reverse the decision of the zoning enforcement officer, he could have issues with this?
Possibly, that's why we're gonna ask you to, even if you grant this application, also grant us a variance so that we have what my father would say is suspenders in a belt, so we know we're doubly protected here.
Okay, I'm sorry, Matt, I have one more question through you. But we don't, 6 can be a no and 7 can be a yes. And they still get what they want.
Correct.
Which would be a suspender and not a belt.
Correct.
Okay, right.
A belt and not a
I
suspender.
just want to be clear.
No, that's exactly.
Okay, now, does anyone else on the board have any other questions for Attorney Gumper?
So, not for, well, but for Matt. So Matt, you rejected this because the opinion that you got back from Deep said there's, their interpretation of the regulation was that raising this building would not impact the historic value of the property, basically. That
Correct.
and
If it was deemed that raising the structure would remove it off of their historic list, I can understand their argument, but it doesn't. Based on what we were provided from the Historic Commission for the state and DEP, by listing that structure and becoming FEMA compliant, would still maintain their.
So there's zero risk.
designation.
There's zero risk in either outcome of the historic nature of this property.
Correct.
And Joe, just to, way I understand it, Matt, his information, and that's all coming from the town attorney, but there's other people in the town involved in the knowledge you received, correct?
We as an office,
Right.
worked it together, yes. As a
I
question.
have just a quick question. I think it's for Matt. Deep doesn't look at our zoning regulations in determining whether or not it constitutes exemption from the definition of a substantial improvement. It's only referring to the historic nature of the improvement, or?
If the improvement removes them off that list, is that, the reason for the letter was
And Deep said, if you raise it, it stays as a historic. If you leave it alone, it stays at historic. But in no way do they look at our town zoning regs about whether or not it would be exempt from.
No, we get assistance from all agencies in the state when we put our regulations together, and you know, this is one of the areas that we and others to put it together.
Attorney Gumper, didn't you state that these are cut and paste from FEMA regulations? So
To say that
ours are FEMA regulations,
I
ours.
mean, our thing, our
statute.
1.1 substantial
Yeah.
improvement is the FEMA.
that's a word for word FEMA.
Gotcha,
So,
okay, thank you.
So all the coastal towns in Connecticut that have flood insurance have
Follow that.
substantially identical regulations.
Okay.
And that the regulations
missed
were
that.
put out by FEMA. It's not exactly a FEMA regulation, but it's a FEMA required regulation if you Catch the little difference there.
Yeah.
They have the wording, they tell the town to do it. We do it because it's important, because we got a lot of people that have flood insurance and they have to qualify.
So we're all about repetition. It's just a simple one-word answer. We grant the structure to remain at current elevation. There is a risk, there's zero risk of historic value changing. There is a risk to the town's status for an insurance discount through FEMA.
I'm gonna probably plead the fifth on that.
We need more information.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that this board, if grant number 7 would jeopardize the town's insurance requirements that are needed by doing so. I also don't think it would set a precedence. The structure is much different than others that we require to lift, as it's not considered a dwelling. So I would say that the answer would be no.
Okay, has everyone? Okay, so I want to ask you a question before we go into public comment. Okay, is everyone, so we have a lot of people here who want to come up and speak, but
I
are
do
they
think
gonna?
almost everyone wants to speak about the variance, I think.
Oh, so,
I think
okay, is that
would
how
be-
you'd like to do it?
I
So,
think it would be, say, how many people are in favor of the decision of the administrator? How many people are in favor of this reverse and modify granted? Not everybody here.
yeah, I mean, that's good for us. I don't know if that can go into public record because they're not coming up, but that's fine because they can go into public record on application 7 on
Exactly.
the agenda. Okay,
And it's just to save you the time of having 27 people get up and say essentially the same thing. I'm
but I also
sensitive
want to
to
make
that.
sure we're sensitive that they came out here today and that they
Yes.
have every right to speak if they'd like to.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm sure they all appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move into asking anybody from the public if they'd like to come up and speak for this application or anyone online. And is there not, oh, we have someone raising their hand. Oh, okay, so you'd like to talk,
To speak in favor.
you wanna speak in favor of the application, okay, and then we also have someone online,
Attorney Russo when he's done.
so just,
I was gonna, most of what I have to say will come in the next part. But
just name and
my
address.
name is Jack Franzen, 95 Harbor Road, Southport. I've been a member of the Sea Lodge since the 80s and also a member of Sasquatch. Reversal of the decision, I think, is important because there have been other properties in Southport that have waived FEMA in the historic district. This is not in the historic district, it's on the state register, so it's somewhat the same situation. I think by doing so, it allows flexibility in a town where there's so many historic structures that are in the flood zone. That's really all I have to say.
Anyone here, or should we go to online? Attorney Russo?
Yes, Chair, members of the board, can you hear me?
Yes.
Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Saskill Hill Road in Fairfield, here on behalf of the property owner at 1259 and 1261 Pequot Ave. Those are the two adjacent properties to the Sea Lodge. And we're in support of this for the reversal. I've never disagreed with Matt in my career, and I'm not going to do it today. I think what is really before this commission is, Matt got an opinion from Deep, but Deep isn't the entity that interprets your regulations. And I think this board, this is different than your typical application where, we're trying to establish a hardship. I think in this one, this board would be using its discretion in interpreting its regulations, and whether, this improvement is exempt. I will tell you, FEMA allows for historic structures to be exempted. They don't need to be in a historic district. I actually have been working on this recently. If any of you know, there's a building if you head west through Westport and you go over the bridge on the right, 2 Post Road West. That is a historic building, and I got a similar type of exemption for that building. And so it's something that is seen a lot of the coastal towns. The commissions, local boards have the authority to exempt those structures. And I think that would be the same situation here. And I think you're well within your bounds to exempt it. If it is exempted, then, you know, as far as flood goes, you know, flood casualty goes, I mean, they'll have higher premiums, but they will be able to get insurance policy that will cover if there's any damage. My understanding too, just from working on that other application, is that when there is something like a disaster and disaster assistance is offered, something like the Sea Lodge would actually get funds from a different source than residents do. That was the case for the one that the building that I was referencing. I think it would be the same for Sea Lodge. So I don't see any way that this would negatively impact the residents of the town. I do think, and maybe I'll speak out this on the next application, I do think raising it would pose a danger, especially tampering with that seawall. I think it could be dangerous for the abutting properties and that there'd be risk to them. But leaving it in place, I don't see any negative impact to area residents. So for those reasons, we support Attorney Gumper's request.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on. Is anyone in the public like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone online? We'll close this application. I guess you stay there. Okay, we're going to read number 7, which is 1313 Pequot Avenue, map 281, parcel 20. Position of the Sasquatch Association for Southport Improvement, Inc. for variance of the zoning regulation, section 32.5, to waive the flood elevation requirement. Permission to not elevate the structure. Premises R-3 zone.
Let's start off with a separate tape. All right, so I'm Kevin Gumper, here today representing the Sea Lodge Incorporated, which is the tenant at the property at 1313 Pequot Avenue and is the operates the Sea Lodge. The building owns the Sea Lodge, which is a membership club of about 80 members. The property itself, 1313, is owned by the Sasquatch Association for Southport Improvement Incorporated and has owned it since 1900. And I have submitted a packet of photos with respect to the last application, which I want to also have made part of the record in this application. The first 3 pictures in the application, the packet I gave you are current photos of the Sea Lodge. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, I think the 4th picture has a note on it, which I want to bring to your attention. That one has a little sticky on it that says lowest horizontal structural member. It is that girder that goes across the top there, and that's starts out as what we're talking about. That is, as it says, at elevation 9.8, and that's going to become so the regulation we're talking about here at this point is section 32.5C, which applies to properties that are located in a flood hazard zone, a high coastal hazard zone, which we are in, and says that in the event that there is a substantial improvement, we don't think it's a substantial improvement, but if you think it is, then this is where we're going, must be elevated to 1.1 feet above the base flood elevation. This building is largely in zone E14, which means the base flood elevation is 14. So the building lowest horizontal structural member would have to be raised up to 15.1 feet, which is 5.3 feet or 5 feet and a little bit less than 4 inches. And that is what we do not want to do. As we mentioned, forget what I mentioned. This building was built in 1951 to replace an earlier building that had been destroyed in a flood. The building was designed by and built according to that design by Roswell Barrett, a local, very renowned architect who designed it specifically to withstand floods and storms. He had considerable expertise in the matter, which my friend Jack Franzen will speak in a few minutes to that and get some interesting facts about Mr. Barrett. And this building has in fact withstood the test of time. It's been here for 73 going on 74 years. It's been through hurricanes, storms, nor'easters, superstorms, and with minimal, if any, damage. We are now asking you to vary the regulation and allow us to keep the lowest horizontal structural member at 5.9 feet rather than at 15.1. So that hurdle is exactly at the same level. The reason we're here at all is that the piers or the pilings that support the clubhouse and deck have deteriorated significantly over the years. Something needs to be done. The Sea Lodge has gone through literally years of trying to figure out what to do, and the most sensible remedy is to replace deteriorated pillars, deteriorated islands, including the 6 that are close to or actually in the water at certain high tides, and 2 others, plus reinforce 6 others. Do that will require that the existing decking be removed so that there's access to the pilings so that they can be removed. And so that's also part of the application to replace the deck. And it'll be looked just the same. And they are also going to replace the stairway that leads from the deck to the sand, which is also deteriorated. That's the proposal. Right now, the building is the deck of the building and the deck and the building itself are basically level with Pequot Avenue. At elevation, I think it is 11.8, I believe. That's insignificant. So that would be then another 5 feet 4 inches above Pequot Avenue. That will impose doing that will impose a very major hardship on the Sea Lodge. The Sea Lodge property is very small. There is between the beach and the building and the edge of their property is only about 47 feet. This is a beach club. If they have to build an access way, it will require 5 feet and 4 inches requires a little bit more than 60 feet of access way, of a ramp, I should say. And the ramps then have to go back and forth, as Mr. Franzen will explain, and they require platforms. So you're talking about 70 or 80 feet of ramp that's going to wrap around the building and back and forth and will eat up a considerable amount of the beach area. You take 8 feet away from, you only have 47 feet to begin with, you're starting to take a pretty significant amount of sand away from the beach club, which is a beach club, and that's what it's there for. Also, the access would have to be from Pequot, it's still from Pequot Avenue. The ramp would be, well, let me just talk about it. I think it is the next to the last piece of paper, or maybe actually it's 5 in from the back. It's a picture of what Jack Franzen has done further, and it shows an aerial view and a side view of what this ramp would look like. And it will be a major change to the property. And it's very difficult to build it because the part that goes along Pequot Avenue is going to interfere. In front of this building, there is a, Pequot Avenue comes close to the building. Then there are the guideposts, there are cables that keep people from driving off the retaining wall. And you're in Pequot Avenue, which is narrow at this point. There's no sidewalk, there's no bike lane, both of which the town would like to put in, and both of which would not be able to be put in if they have to put a ramp in there. There's a lot of interference, and Mr. Franzen will explain his conversations with the building department or Public Works in a moment when he gets up to speak. And again, this is an unusual application because we are usually, when someone comes before this board, they're looking to change their building. They need a variance to add second story addition to put up a garage or even split up a lot. In this case, we're coming for a variance so that we can keep it exactly the same and from all outside appearances. This also is a different application than normal because under section 32 of your regulations, which is all FEMA mandated language, it's not the typical, there are specific requirements for granting a variance from the FEMA regulations. There are 32-7A. Regulation, I'm sure Matt will go over them, of the things that you have to show, you have to find in order to grant the variance. So at this point, I'm gonna let Mr. Franklin take over and give a few comments both on Mr. Barrett and the hardship that this would impose on the Sea Lodge. Thank you, Matt.
Good afternoon, I'm Jack Franson, 95 Harbor Road. And I'm here to favor of this waiver request. Original 1901 Sea Lodge was a charming wood frame structure, pictures of, and presented a very large profile against the wind and the waves. And it survived a lot of storms, but it didn't make it through the, I believe it was an unnamed storm of November in 1950, which ended up being, at that time, it was the second to the 38 storm. And I believe maybe only Sandy was worse, or a tie. So it was a bad storm. The Sea Lodge as it exists today, as Kevin said, was designed by Roz Barrett in the spring of 1951. Roz Barrett was originally an architect in New York City. He told me that he designed Abercrombie and Fitch. He did some fire stations, but then he retired to Southport and he lived on the corner of Westway and Pequot for many years and was part of the old Curtis house. During World War I, he was an amateur weatherman. During World War I, he was a meteorologist in the Navy. And he served in the United Kingdom during World War I. Became one of only 2 Americans to be members of the Royal Academy of Meteorology, which in the UK, they don't give that out to just everyone. And then my understanding is he did the same thing in Bethesda, Maryland in World War II. But he also designed for Admiral Byrd, in America, you know how windy it is in Antarctica. You can go online and see the structures. They were all demountable panels that these guys would carry on ships and then they put them together. They withstood the climate there. So he understood the fundamentals of resilient design and how to deal with the wind. The Sea Lodge, the new one, was positioned with a gap between the structure and the stone retaining wall on Pequot Avenue. And what that gap allowed for is for the waves to pass under the structure and exert their energy against the stone wall, and then they shoot up behind the building instead of coming up under the building and just blowing it up, which is what happened to the first building. The building is built on slats like a deck. So it's not like a solid floor. There are cracks in the floor, which allows the water to come up and to go out. And also, you know, when the kids have sandy feet, you can just sweep the sand and it goes through the cracks. So it's very brilliant in two respects. The floor was, as I said before, is made out of slats to reduce the hydrostatic pressure. As of today, the sea ledge in its current form has outlasted the predecessor by a quarter of a century and quite a few other storms. Strictly interpreted, the current FEMA regs would require lifting the sea ledge, as Kevin said, 5.3 feet, since the amount of proposed renovation work would constitute the way we talk about with the 50% of the structure value, a substantial improvement. And this would make sense on most all properties, like any kind of habitable space. But here, most structures that I've dealt with in the flood zone, they have potential threat to human safety, potential damage to insulation, sheetrock, furnishings, appliances, mechanical equipment, automobiles, etc. Sea ledge has none of this. The only thing that's in that building, other than just wood that would just dry out, is a refrigerator that can be unplugged and carried out as we get warnings of these storms way before they come. There's nothing in there that's going to get soaked, that's going to start, you know, falling apart. Sea ledge is not a domicile. There are no interior finishes, no mechanicals, no air conditioning equipment, no heating equipment, no fans, no hoods or anything like that. As Kevin said, lifting it would require building a huge ramp, which you can see on this drawing here. And this elevation, we didn't draw the view from the water, which
This is, you have a copy of this, small copy in front of you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to strain your eyes to look at it.
probably should have drawn a view from the water side because it looks like the Chicago stockyards. And I have some serious doubts as to whether we could build the ramp in a way that wouldn't get damaged because of the railings hit them and probably knock them over. I think we all agree it's an eyesore. I don't know if the SHPO or the FEMA people actually came physically to see the site, but part of the historic nature of any historic property is its setting. And when you look at this building elevated with a ramp added, the setting is destroyed, in my opinion. And I've been doing a lot of preservation work in my career. I was on the Historic District Commission for 5 years, and if it came to our commission, I think they would ask the architect to rethink it, somehow come up with another solution. We discussed the possibility with engineering, and we haven't asked them for a complete analysis, but we did get a reply from Bill Hurley. He actually said that he had a lot of concerns with getting a ramp. He felt that it would interfere with there's a guy wire for a utility pole. There's an existing guardrail that's sort of obstruction to building the ramp. There's actually a nice tree there. There's a locust tree that's been there, I think, 50 years or more. It's always been there as far as I can recall. He said he would consider a ramp of a 2% slope. But for this, we'd have to have it would be an 8%. I'm sorry, it would be a 8%, possibly as low as 6%, but we couldn't make it work with 2%. So I think it's fair to say, due to the topographic conditions here, where we're building a structure and the elevation that exists on that property is too close to the water, this makes no sense to do this. Happy to answer any questions.
Hi. So inside there's a sink and that's it. There's no bathroom
There are 2 toilets.
because they're not shown on here.
I don't think we weren't trying to show.
Curious what the use of this
Yeah.
building is, if it's just
Yeah,
an empty
there's
shack.
there's a utility sink and then there are two chambers with water.
So that's why, that's how it's used for parties or whatever, but
Yeah, you can bring sodas and store them in the fridge, there's ice in there.
yeah, but it's not open to the public.
Yeah.
That's my only question. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry, I do have another. So this is in the residential zone?
It's in the R
R3 zone.
R3
So if
zone.
this was ever in the future considered to be converted to a house, it would have to go through P and Z anyway, right? Is that correct?
You would need to, house would be a permitted use in R3.
To convert this structure to
You
a
would
house?
have to get a building permit and I think then you would be up against a lot of others.
Have to go to P and Z first for
You would
change
need
of
a zoning
use?
first.
Zoning permit, but not the commission.
Okay, that's my question, okay.
You have to be here again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you built the building, the way you show it, how much smaller would your space become that's usable? Like from what it is now? How many square
Well,
feet is the
it's-
current building, the shed,
It wouldn't detract, I don't
Oh, it
think,
wouldn't, you
from the existing building. What it would detract from is the use of the sand.
right, so you're just taking over all the sand?
A lot of it, yeah.
And the second question is, if you did that, would you have to be ADA compliant?
That's what.
Is
That's
what-
so that is an ADA compliant ramp,
That's correct.
but but it's so uphill, I guess.
Yeah, that's why the ramp is so long.
Because it just to be able
It's
to,
at 8% it's 8.3%, but we recommend 6% because a lot of times when they build them, they go over the 8.3% and then you're in trouble.
and you just, I don't know if you know the answer, but how much would it cost to construct that drawing?
Just a ramp?
No, if you did that, what would your end cost be with the pilings, changing?
Oh, I think it's over $500,000.
So it'd be $500,000.
I believe that was the.
In best case scenario, if you put a for sale sign on that beach house today, what would it sell for? I shouldn't call it a house, club.
Yeah, I'm not qualified to answer
It's
that.
appraised at 37 or assessed at
That's
37,000.
that's just the structure.
It's
What,
the
the
land.
land, so the land is what's really
400,
valuable.
I think it's like 405, I looked it up,
Yeah, I mean,
just for
I
the
can
land.
only think of a few entities that would even be interested in it. One of them might be Connecticut Audubon or
Right.
somewhere where you could watch birds, because it's a great place.
Well, the reason I ask is I was just wondering if from a zoning board of appeals perspective, if we asked you to do something that creates the property to have less value. Okay, Joe, do you have anything?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay, I don't think we have,
Answer your question. What we're proposing to do is fairly simple. Take off the decking, replace, that's 8 pilings. That's it. To bring this up to elevate to full elevation, we have to take the building off, take off all the deck, replace every piling. Major problem. We had a proposal for this, why it cost so much money, was to actually take the existing building off, put it on a barge and float it over somewhere else because to go down the street, go through a street, and on a trailer truck. The town probably would not allow you to store it there on the Southport Beach. So it is going from a fairly simple, easy fix. I'm not paying for it, so I can say it's easy, to a really expensive and difficult and complicated fix.
The ramp on the beach side would, when you're there and there's a high tide, the water comes almost up to the rear of the building. So the only area where you can really sit on blankets is the area where the ramp would go. At low tides, you can move closer to the sound.
okay, thank you very much. So now for public comment, Attorney Gumper, do you have a way that you think that this could go?
Well, I think often when I was there, if someone had an attorney, I often thought that you let the attorney for the person speak, not me, but like Attorney Russo speak, and he would kind of sum up perhaps many of the neighbors' thoughts, and then you could ask, or the people here, and ask people have other things to say.
Okay, so, but if you, this is what we could do, we could go to Attorney Russo. And then, just because you're here and you do want to be part of the record, if you'd like to speak for the application, just get up, just say your name and address and say, I'm here to say yes to this application. And then you could just sit down. And that way, you got here and we hear you, but we're not gonna get into dinner time. Is that- But, and again, everyone has a right to speak. And if you have something to say, you have every right to do so, and we will listen, okay? So we will, though, ask Attorney Russo to speak first. So this is people who would like to speak for this application. So Attorney Russo, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Saskill Hill Road in Fairfield. Here on behalf of the property owner of 1259 and 1261 Pequot Avenue, which again are the two properties to the east of 1313 Pequot Ave. Attorney Gumper summed it up, I think, but because this is a variance in hardship kind of review, different than the one before, I will echo what Attorney Gumper referenced with regards to the special section you really have in your regulations regarding variances from the flood protection regulations. And one of the items in that, that list out the basis for such a variance is that a determination that the granting of a variance will not result in, among other things, additional threats to public safety or create nuisance. And in this case, I think the opposite is true, that if you don't approve it, there will be additional threats to public safety if they have to raise it, and there will be additional nuisances. One in particular just being the amount of piles that will have to be driven. My understanding is if it's raised, it has to be 46 piles, and if it isn't, it's 14. So, with that seawall there, I think driving that many piles and that concentration would pose a safety risk, particularly to my client's properties. And then I think the nuisances that Attorney Gumper listed that would be created to the public, that's a road I drive almost every weekday morning from taking my kids to school, and it is full of people walking along Pequot Avenue, and which is narrow, and having trucks, having all that work involved with driving 46 piles, I think is a nuisance and increased danger to the public. So I think the basis is right in your regs to approve a variance like this, and ask you to support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will go back, we'll do people in the room and then we'll go back to online. So why don't we could start this way and go down. So if you'd like to go up, we just need you to say your name and address, and if you just want to say, I'm in favor of this application, or if you want to talk. So are you here, sir, for this? Would you like to approach? So just name, address, and what you'd like to say.
Nicolas Ancel, 1488 Sturgis Highway in Fairfield, and I'm here to support this application.
Okay, thank you so much. And next,
My name is Laura Becker Lawler, 60 Taylor Place, Southport. I'm in favor of the application.
And one thing, what's your position with
I'm
Sasquatch?
president of the Sasquatch.
Sasquatch consent and approve of this application?
Yes, yes. Support fully.
John Territson, 89 Westway Road at Southport. I'm also on the board of Sasquatch. I'm also speaking just in my capacity as a resident. I just think requiring the renovation to be done to this building is just crazy. Even the simple work to be done to just shore up the foundation is an excellent idea, and turn it into a major construction project would be nuts.
thank you. Okay, yes, please.
Mariana
Just
Patron.
if you could just get, just because the microphone's right there.
Mariana Patron, 47 Maple Drive, and I'm in favor of these applications.
Thank you.
I'm Walt Singman, 173 Horseshoe, Fairfield. I'm in favor of the variance application. I would really hate to see the Sea Lodge change like that. I think it would be very unwieldy. I've been a member there since 1959. Few years. As a kid, as a young lifeguard there, and as an adult with my children and now my grandchildren, I think the ramps would be crazy. Just keep it the same.
Okay. We'll go to right around the corner. But if you don't, just so you know, if you don't want to get up, you don't have to, but we just want to tell you if you can.
Hi, my name is Tony Patron at 47 Maple Drive. I'm in favor of the application.
Thank you.
Hi, Donald Riley, 186 Puritan Road, Fairfield. I'm in favor of the application.
Thank you.
I'm Bradford Evans. My wife and I own 1261, which is the adjoining property. House 1259 Pequot. I'm in favor of variance.
Thank you. You know what, we'll do the front row and then we'll come back, okay? Yes,
I'm Peter Quinn.
please go to the, I know you sound loud, but we still need to.
I'm Peter Quinn and I'm the interim president. I've been working really long and hard over the last year and a half, looking at the options of doing and repairing the Sea Lodge. It's in serious need of repair. And when you look at moving and putting new piles in, raising it up or whatever the requirement may be, the first thing you have to do is move the entire building. You can't get at it, you can't do it. How do you do that? And that becomes virtually untenable. And of course, it also jeopardizes the very historic building itself. You start moving a historic building, what do? Take it apart and then put it back together again? I mean, it's a little preposterous. The other thing, I think, the first issue was about the exemption. And you're either exempt or you're not. The regulations are black letter. You read it, you're historic, you're exempt. Now, if someone from the state decides to say if you move it, raise it, or you move it down the beach, it would still be historic. The building is historic. So therefore you're exempt. I think that our attorney has made a very good case on this, and I hope you'll seriously consider it. Appreciate everything, but I'm very much in favor of these.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's speak.
My name is Lynn Quinn, 700 Roland Road, wife of Peter. And I am very much in favor of variance. One thing had occurred to me as you were discussing that ramp is that even though the slope might be a bit less than original, it is difficult, especially for older people, women with young children, women bringing maybe, a stroller up or equipment or whatever for their babies. It's really hard to navigate that slope and the length of that slope. So that, I think, would be a safety hazard. Second thing is, as others have pointed out, the environment itself is part of the historic value of Sea Lodge. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be there and look at the magnificence of Long Island, of the sound, the water, the sunrise, the sunset. I am a born-and-raised New York City girl on Crete. This is so wonderful, and for children and growing up in this. So very much, I would like to see variance passed. Thank you so much.
Next. No, behind, there you go, thank you.
Go back down that way.
Yeah, he got it. He knew the rules. He understood.
My name is Steve McDevitt. I live at 400 Burr Street in Fairfield. I did have a couple of letters that we didn't mail in. I don't know if they're still, we can still put
Yeah,
them in.
you can give them.
I mentioned that to see if we could put it in, but also the reason was we have 3 young children. They've been sick over the holidays. That's why we couldn't get to the post office. That's really the crux, I think, of our support of the Sea Lodge. If anyone has had 3 kids under 5 like we do, going to the beach is really difficult. Someone starts eating sand 20 minutes after you get it's challenging. Sea Lodge makes that much more attainable for all of us, and was really, we've only been a member for 1 year. It was a huge difference maker for us, and we absolutely loved it. I would say that we also host people from New York a lot that are trying to decide where to live, and having a building and offering like the Sea Lodge is a big difference maker, and it's something that people pay attention to. And if you're thinking about attracting young people to come to Fairfield, I think it's a nice little cherry on top of an already great town. The last thing I would say is that there's a lot of these type of places that are disappearing for people of our generation, and Sea Lodge has soul. It's not just some highfalutin beach club. It is a place where people can be members for 60 years or people can be members for 1 year. That's great. So we'd love to see it maintained, and definitely in support of the variance.
Thank you very much. Anyone in the back row popping up? Yeah, sorry.
I'm Kaylin McManus of 250 Southgate Lane, and I couldn't agree more with everything he just said. I have one on the way and one little guy, but also being a neighbor of the Sea Lodge, I do think that there would be danger to doing the renovations with all the moving and everything. So hopefully we can do this and get it ready for summer.
Thank you.
How are you? My name's Allison Baracasa. I live at 1215 Bronson Road, and I am truly in favor of this variance. Echoing all the wonderful words that were just said. I've only been a member for a year, have 2 little ones, and we are making core memories all the time. It's just such a special place to live in Fairfield and to part of the beach club and be able to experience that. So support.
Thank you.
It's a long way. A short line. I'm Doug Prescott, and I'm 100% in favor of whatever the hell is going on.
Could you just, Doug?
Address, please.
Doug, we need your address, Doug.
Just your address, Doug.
Oh, 93 Open Gate Lane, Southport, Connecticut. But don't get us any checks.
No, go right ahead.
My name is Helena Coatsworth. I live at 120 Kings Drive in Southport, Connecticut. I've been a member of the Sea Lodge for 20 years. I've spent every summer with my kids there. I'm a teacher. It's the only affordable option, frankly, for me to just be able to spend time at the beach with my kids. So I support it wholeheartedly and to continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sue Prescott at 93 Open Gate Lane in Southport, and I've been a member of the Sea Lodge since like for 50 years. In fact, Wally, he was our lifeguard when about this. No. Again, just totally supportive of it, and just it's when I was down there the other day taking some pictures just to put around town to make sure that the people shopping during Christmas time were aware of what was happening, just to kind of raise the visibility. It's not just about the Sea Lodge, right? So it's when you're down at one end and you look down, it affects the whole beach. It affects the vibe, and it affects the whole beauty of Southport Beach. It's not just one building. So I just wanted to take that into account.
Thank you very much.
It's a community.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate Jaffer, 2300 Milton. I support
Thank you.
It's Pat Lohatsky. I live at 83 Grant Road. For a lot of years and agree with what everyone said, and it is the community. It's not just our little beach club. It's I'm supporting the variance.
Thank you very much.
Hello and Happy New Year. I'm Peg North and I'm from 35 Barberry Road. And I'm here to represent the Sasquenaw Association for the preservation of Southport. So yes, I am in favor of this. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
My name's Nelson North, 35 Barberry Road, Southport. I am not a member of the Beach Club. I do, however, support strongly the maintenance of these ancient, old, historic, and very, very important establishments and institutions in our town. We've got to hold on to them. Thank you.
We have everyone in the room who wanted to speak. We're gonna go online now. Is everyone good? Okay, we'll start with, maybe we could start on the bottom. So McManus, do you want to speak in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm JT McManus, 250 Southgate Lane. Me and my wife and my son have been members of the Sea Lodge since we moved to Fairfield. We're definitely in favor of supporting the Sea Lodge and the variance for this project. In addition, we spoke to several neighbors on Southgate Lane who are also in favor of this, being close neighbors there. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Maybe next we could go to Tagliere. Terrell?
Yes, hi, I'm Terrell Talleri from 966 Umpqua Road in Fairfield, and I'm in support of the variance.
Thank you very much. We could go to Allison and John Love. Kelly Jacobson. Right? Oh, is someone coming?
Fully unmuted.
Oh, Kelly? Brian Clark?
Yes, I'm Brian Clark, Brian and Brian Construction Company. I've done lots of work in your town down there. My first visit was to 1261 Pequot Avenue. When I was 6 years old, it was my first job working on a construction site. And we as a family from Bethel would come down there off season and enjoy your beach. It was beautiful down there. I've since gone to work for the Evanses and worked on their properties. My concern is that I think it would be a hazard to raise this building, the seawall at the Evanses and the retaining wall that goes out into the sound. All that vibration with 24 pilings, it could propose a big hazard to that wall. So,
okay, thank you very much.
No. And hi, this is Allison Love. Sorry, I was having technical difficulties, but just wanted to say I'm in favor. I'm 172 Hulse Highway. I've been a member for 2 years, and I'm also in favor of this variance.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, if you are online, you could talk out loud. You haven't spoken yet.
Just the guy in his workroom.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna stop that for now. But I.
Yep, he's paying attention again.
Who is that?
Samsung.
Who is it?
I mean, there you go.
You have to unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, bud.
I don't think he wants to talk.
I don't think he does either.
He signed it to the wrong site.
So we're gonna now ask, and we do have another question after that. Okay, we're gonna go to negative first and then we'll go back to you. So is there anyone here in opposition to this application?
Surprised.
That's what I.
Okay, is anyone online here in opposition to this application? Okay, seeing none, I think, we're going to, do you wanna?
I just have a quick question, quick, this is a private club, it's limited to how many members?
It's limited by the number of lockers at the.
Right, I'm reading it
club.
here,
And there's about-
66 or more?
There's about 80 members as I counted, but some are staying members and some are,
About 80.
about 80 members.
And when there's an opening-
Families.
When there's an opening, do you have to, this I'm just curious, like, do you have to be invited or?
Oh, let's just.
Speak to that.
Yeah.
I'm chair.
Why don't you come up and speak?
I'm asking this because I'm just curious, like, to whose benefit is all of this discussion? Just these, limited number of residents?
Well, we have 70, we have about 80 members, about 75 lockers, they're just little cubbies.
Yeah.
So our membership is based on the number of, or the space, the number of lockers that we have. It's not exclusivity, it's size. And if there's an opening, which there are few, anyone can join.
Anyone in Fairfield?
Anyone in
South,
Fairfield.
because this says only South.
No, Fairfield,
Yeah,
and
your
we
website.
say, hasn't been updated in a while. We say Fairfield because you need a permit to park anywhere along the beach, but we do have people from other towns. They Uber, so it is not necessarily Fairfield, but again, it's not exclusivity, it's just size. It's a small facility, it's a small beach, but anyone is welcome to get in touch with anyone on our board and
Is there a waiting list?
there is typically a waiting list, but I will confess at this point, we have room. So anybody, just put your names, give me your name.
If I'm wrong, we had many instances of families joining from Easton, am I correct? Over the
We've had
years?
Easton and we've had Westport, because Westport being right down the street, we have a couple of families and they just walk.
Pat, also you should clarify, a locker can be a whole family.
Sure.
It isn't one person, so it's 80 families.
I understand. I'm just curious.
May I speak?
And I would just add that, just as a member, Amanda McDevitt, 400 Burr Street, you're allowed to have guests, and we have a lot of families, friends in the community that come with us to enjoy the community. We also have the same, similar situation with young kids, and every member is able to have evening parties where also people who are not members are able to come and enjoy it.
So for membership, there's a waiting list, to the top of the list.
You're in.
There's no.
There's no.
There's no process.
Okay,
But let me-
just curious,
may I
yes,
speak?
and do you have something to say?
Yeah, may I
Yes,
speak?
please.
Because I'm not a member of this club. I've set foot in there, I think, once, because I went there to meet someone. And it's a visual impact also on the surrounding area. It's not limited to the club itself. It's the appearance for the whole beach and for the whole surrounding area is an important point. And that's what concerns me.
I just.
Okay, are you ready? Oh dear.
Answer your question, the people that benefit from this, everybody that drives by, the visual impacts, the neighbors, the people that use it, and perhaps the people that now will be able to walk by since there won't be this ramp in the way. Assuming we're to grant. Now, just I'll summarize here if I can, under 37, 2.7 of your relationship specific findings that you have to make in order to grant a variance of anything under the 32s. And the first is that a good and sufficient cause has been shown. I think we've demonstrated that the failure to grant the variance will result in exceptional hardship to the applicant. I think that's for sure. And that the granting of the variance will not result in increased flood height, additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, create nuisances, cause fraud or victimization of the public, or conflict with existing local laws or ordinances. And I don't see that any of those would happen because especially you're not increasing anything, you're just really having the status quo was in, so I think this satisfies all the requirements of 32.7. Thank you for your time and your effort here and hope you come out the right way on this.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna close this hearing, application, and we have one more to do. Okay, we are going back to number 2, I believe. Is it number 2? Number 2 is 1210 Encore Road West, map 179, parcel 389. You know,
Folks,
you know what, if people need to go, why don't we just take 1 second so people can exit so this other application can be heard fairly.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So we should hang it around.
Well, at least it won't be a traffic jam when we look.
Exactly. There'll be parking spaces. Okay, I'm gonna start again. All right, number 2, 1210 Encore Road West, maps 179, parcel 289. Petition of Scott and Kyla Ritchie for a variance of the zoning regulation section 5.2.4 to reduce the secondary street line setback on a corner lot from 22 feet, currently 14.2 feet, proposing 14.6 feet. Permission to construct a second floor addition premises R2 zone. Would the applicant like to speak in behalf of their application?
Yes, I'm online.
Hi, Kyla.
Hi, I'm Kyla Ritchie, 1210 Uncle Road West, and we're hoping to construct a second floor rear addition over existing first floor. Should I talk about the hardship?
Yes.
So our home was built in 1929, and at the time of its construction, the property met all the current zoning requirements, including the setback to the west of the property. In 1973, a subdivision was approved by the Plan and Zoning Commission to construct 3 homes to the west of our property by creating a right-of-way that is greater than 25 feet per the zoning laws, now turned our side property line into a street property line. This changed the required setbacks from 7-foot sideline setback to a 22 street line setback. So that's why we need the variance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does the board have any questions to Mrs. Ritchie? No. We don't have any questions. Is there anyone here in the public that would like to speak for this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, we're going to close this application. That is all of our applications for tonight. We're going to go into our voting session, but I need a minute.
Say la guerre.
I'd like to call back to order the zoning board of appeals meeting, January 2nd, 2024. We're now going to start our voting process, just so you understand how this works. We motion to open up an application, we have 2 motions, we then discuss the application, and then we vote live. The public is not allowed, or please don't speak during this process. We're gonna go in order of how they were given to us, so the last application will be number 6 and 7, just so you know. As we told you before, it's a supermajority, so for your variance or your application to be approved, 4 out of 5 of the board need to say yes. Okay, so we are going to start with application number 1, which was 54 Sterling Street. They wanted a permission to construct a second floor addition. They are looking for a variance on their side yard setback. Okay, so first, I would like a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Okay, can I have a second?
Jane seconds.
Okay, is there any discussion on this?
It's a pre-existing non-conforming structure. They're not really changing anything, and I think it's a fairly simple and straightforward ask.
Yeah, anyone else? All right, if there's no more discussion, we're gonna vote, and Elise, we're always gonna start with you. You're a yes, Brian?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Yes. And I'm a yes. So that is a variance granted. We're gonna do two, even though we spoke last, we're gonna go in order of how we received them initially. This is 1210 Encore Road, who is wants to promote to build a second floor, and they're asking for a street line setback variance. Can I have a motion to approve?
Brian moves.
And can I have a second? 10 seconds. And is there discussion?
It's a corner lot, which in every instance since I've been on this board provides its own hardship, let alone the fact that it was a pre-existing conforming lot that was changed by that. It's a simple ask, they're going up.
Does anyone have anything to add to that? Are we ready to vote? Okay, Elise? Yes. Ryan?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Dane? Yes. And I'm a yes. That variance is granted. Number 3. 887 Riverside Drive. This is where they want to remove a deck, remediate some soil, put the same deck back on, same size deck. And they are asking for a variance because it's already non-conforming deck. Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Oh, you first did, Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Joe moved.
missed it.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
I did the math.
Okay,
And 7% is twice as much as what the deck currently is and what they're proposing to put back. So I think it's a wash in that case.
No big deal.
Yes.
oh, we're voting.
Oh, sorry.
You like that.
When you looked past me, I
I'm
just
sorry.
assumed that's where
I
we
just
were
wanted to know
going.
if you had anything to say. Okay, so you're a yes.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
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 And I am also a yes. Okay, on to number 4, 320. So Rakosi, okay, 320 Rakosi Avenue, map 79, parcel 749. They have asked to construct a second floor addition and they need a variance on the 2 sideline setbacks. I need a motion to approve
So moved.
and a second.
Second,
Okay, any discussion?
with the proper Hungarian pronunciation, it's Rakosi.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, boy. It's, they're not changing anything and they just want to put a second floor on the house. Fairly straightforward.
Non-conforming lot?
Pre-existing non-conforming.
Okay, anything else to add to that? Okay, we're going to vote. Elise?
Yes.
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 And I'm also a yes, that variance is granted. Okay, number 5, 29 South Pine Creek Court. They're looking to put on a second floor addition. They need a variance on their street line setback. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay, Elise, thank you. Discussion.
They're ameliorating an existing condition, which gives them the right to apply. And it's fairly straightforward. They're adding 100 square feet to a house for a nursery. It's fairly simple.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we're gonna vote now. Elise? Yes.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yes. And Chris is a yes. That means that variance is approved for 29 South Pine Creek Court.
So fun.
Okay, so I believe this is it's gonna be difficult to discuss 6 and not somehow discuss 7, but I believe we need to do them separately and vote separately, so let's try to just stay in what we're doing, okay? So I'm gonna read it, it's 1313 Pequot Avenue, map 281. And this is a petition to reverse or modify the decision of the zoning administration. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Ryan, second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to start?
I have a procedural question that Matt can answer, and I just have to make sure that we do this right, because I screw it up at least once.
Go right ahead.
A yes for the applicant would be a reversal of the decision, so it would be in favor of what they're asking. A no would be
Because we did a motion to approve.
because we did a motion to approve. Just wanted to make sure,
Approve the reverse or modify.
just want to make sure yes is in their favor, no would be standing with what the town.
But for discussion purposes, it's hard because the advice or how the town acted was, you know, in good faith to the statute. Yet the attorney is telling us in his mind that, or in looking at this, that that's not correct. And if you read the statute yourself, I mean, I think that's really the only thing we can look at here. Please.
My only question is, that is, from what I'm gathering, is that deep had something to do with how the town decides certain things.
FEMA.
No, but
Oh,
deep.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't have the deep really info, except that they wanted the applicant to raise it so it's in compliance. Separate and apart from that is the question of what is our zoning reg, which is FEMA, say about it.
Okay.
So that's sort of how I've, in my mind, kind of constructed this. Because I agree with you that the plain letter is one thing, which is the FEMA thing. And
Because I think Attorney Russo said that he felt Deep said that what FEMA wrote was gray or foggy, and this is how Deep is interpreting.
I don't have Deep's
Right.
information here.
Right, well, they're interpreting FEMA.
So I think the reason I asked the questions the way I asked them during the course of the hearing was to get to two specific things. One, I think the reason that the town acted the way that it acted, or the decision, made the decision it made, was because they were given the impression that the insurance standing of the town could be put at risk if the structure wasn't raised, because the exemption still existed for the structure once it was elevated. So in complying with the town, the structure not losing its status took away its default exemption. I think that's why the town acted. I understand it and it makes sense to me. However, I think we have the leeway to say that a plain text reading applied to the historic structure is not out of bounds. And with the answers to the questions that we got, that the town's insurance status or the area's insurance standing would likely not be at risk, and our board wouldn't more than anything be, faulted in some way for granting such an application. I think we can take some of the pressure off of the decision made by the town.
I don't know if I really get the impression that the flood insurance was the crux of it. I think from what I could read is it's Deep telling the town that they have to make them raise it. That's the impression I got.
It removed, it by default removed their exemption.
It doesn't though. Deep says their exemption would stay even if they raise.
But that's what I'm saying,
Their exemption, their historic
Their-
status.
right.
Stays.
Their
Either
exemption
way.
for not raising it is voided by saying that they're still historical when they raise it.
Right.
So I think that's where, that's where the town was coming from, but I think there has to, in my mind, this was the first question that came up in my head, was the town's decision based on some protection of the town's insurance rating because the structure would be compliant or they were being told that the structure had to be compliant.
I think Matt did say, I believe, my recollection is right, that he couldn't speak to that definitively.
Definitively, right.
But Matt
But
also.
his answer was no.
His letter to the association really was what Deep told him or told town authorities. It seems like the town was going off of Deep. Does anyone else have thoughts?
I'm just-
Shareability?
I just wanna, no, we have the opportunity to say yes or no or modify. So if there's a way we can modify the decision that appease all these questions.
Well, we can certainly say no to 6 and yes to 7.
Well, we're just looking at 6 right now.
I know, but
But
that's what you asked.
I think 6 is a binary question. It's yes, it stays flat, or no, it goes up.
With conditions, I mean, I'm saying, could we, are there any conditions we can apply that would modify, that would satisfy both Mr. Decker and the applicant?
I don't see how, because like I said, the question is binary. They're asking for it not to be raised. The town is requiring them to raise it. That's really the only question in the decision. It's whether or not the structure is elevated 5.3 feet or not. I can't see, I mean, I'm not creative as some, but
So as I see it, the zoning enforcement officer issued an opinion based on advice from Deep. And as I read Deep's letter and the zoning enforcement officers, it's in the.
No Deep letter in the packet.
Yes.
No, I thought you would.
As it's in there, I see that Matt acted appropriately, and therefore there's no reason for us to reverse that decision. That doesn't mean that the building can't get built. We have number 7, and I think the circumstances there are completely different than what we're looking at in number 6.
I would agree. The suspenders are still very much in play
But
without the belt.
I mean, Deep doesn't. We don't know if Deep was relying on FEMA. We don't have evidence of this or any information about that. What was Deep relying on?
I think all we have to concern ourselves with was what was the zoning enforcement officer relying on in issuing his decision, and do we want to sustain it or reverse it? I don't think we have to go beyond what was in Deep's head when they wrote the letter.
They didn't write a letter. That was Historic Preservation's letter that we have in our packet. We don't have any information from Deep except that we know they want them to raise it.
That comes from Matt.
That comes from Matt. I don't have any reason to doubt that that's, I'm not saying that.
And we also heard from Attorney Gumper, who he also told us that Deep told them they would have to raise it, because he spoke to Deep.
So the crux of this comes down to there's a plain text reading, and then there's an interpreted reading provided to the town, which came into some conflict. I'm of the opinion that there's no reason to change the enforcement officers and change Matt's ruling on it based on the best information that he was given by those that he collaborated with. And again, we as a board have the ability in granting a variance to modify that in practice.
But we still have to deal with this.
Right,
And we have
but
to
I'm-
say singularly on this, like.
And what I'm saying singularly on this, my personal opinion, and it'll reflect in my vote, is that we stand on Matt's decision to issue his requirement. And then move forward in terms of a variance. So that's what I would say.
Reversal of Matt's zoning regs.
No, it's so, trying to find the most diplomatic, whatever situation way to say this. Matt did what he was supposed to do. We as a board can codifies the wrong word. We can support Matt's decision in doing what he did with the best advice of counsel and counsel provided. We can also, without contradicting or in any way being shown to be false, support a variance saying something different. Because that is the function of the board in terms of a variance. It's the function of our board in terms of a
That's number
variance.
7.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else have something they'd like to, any other thoughts on this application?
On number 6.
Only number 6.
Only number 6.
I'm just reading right from this actual zoning regs, what that section is.
The first C
The
or
LL.
LL1.
It's longer than just the
Right.
quotation.
Yep.
Records.
Yes, because I read that too, because what we received in the application was kind of a cut and paste. We didn't see the whole.
Yeah, so I'm reading the entire
It's kind of what they do.
definition.
And just for the record, the letter I was referencing was from the State Historic Preservation Office and not from me.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote. So, just to be clear, say yes. It means that you as a board member want to reverse the decision of the zoning administration in the town. If you say no, then you do not want to reverse the decision. Okay, Elise?
I'm a yes.
I'm a no. I'm a no also.
It's all right.
Okay, we're going to do our last and final. We're gonna talk about 1313 Pequot Avenue. And this application is asking us to waive the flood elevation requirements. So it's a variance to waive the flood elevation requirements. So it's really just how tall do these trees need to be? Okay, I'm gonna open it up. I'd like to open this, I'd like to motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, and someone else?
Second.
Okay, so let's have discussion. Jane?
So this is where we can talk about hardship.
Right.
Right, and so.
Substantial improvement in what it means.
Well,
Well,
all
we
those
don't
things.
really need to now though, because that argument's over.
Right, the hardship, this is again, one of these weird pre-existing situations where we have the ability to make our own decision.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of things, I mean, I think their arguments were really put together about the town and how this would affect visually how this is. But also, I mean, we can look at what would we do to this property if we demanded that they conform to the regulations. I mean, I think it would become invaluable,
Well, this is where
non-valuable.
it would cause hardship
Exactly, it would
if we
become worthless.
force this to take place.
And I think, the arguments they made about what would happen to this site would just I mean, you would not have no sand, you'd have no beach. So, anyone else have anything they'd like to share on application number 7?
Go ahead, Joe.
I think that if I'm understanding the regs, because it's a historic structure, it's not considered a substantial improvement and therefore we don't, doesn't need to be raised.
Exactly, in my opinion.
Okay, we're ready. We ready to vote?
Mhm.
Our last vote of the night. So exciting. Okay, Elise, we're gonna start with Joe. Remember, a yes means that we're granting the variance. Okay, so we're back to normal.
I'm a yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes, and I'm also a yes.
there you go.
Okay, we are gonna close this hearing. Thank everyone so much for coming out. Okay, so on this one? Okay, wait, we're gonna open this up again.
Folks,
Wait, hold on.
folks, if you could please have a seat for one more minute.
We have to put it into the record. We're going to approve the variance of the zoning regulation section 32.5 to waive the flood elevation requirements for 1313 Pequod Avenue. Permission not to elevate the structure. Okay, that closes the public hearing.
Hold on.
Under your regulation, if I may, you have to make FEMA requires.
Yes.
And did you make them, that there's a, that it,
Under hardship, create a nuisance.
Oh.
Insufficient cause was shown.
Yeah.
That the failure to grant would result in exceptional hardship, and that granting the variance would not result in any increased flood zone, flood heights, additional threat. I think you have to make
What
that.
section are you looking at for that?
32.7.
I think if you read the transcript of our vote, all three things were discussed.
I think that will show you, you have to have it in the record, it has to be specific. I just don't want, I appreciate what you've done, but I wanna make sure that Matt has you. We can go back with FEMA. No problem.
So on 32.7, A, I, double I, and triple I, include those with your decision.
Do we have to say that out loud right now? Okay, but I don't, do I have that in front of me?
What page is that
on this? Sorry.
151.
Oh, I have it online. Okay, so
At the top,
32.7.
I, double I, and triple I.
Okay, so we're gonna reopen the public hearing ZBA vote January 2nd, 2025. To the approval of applicant 1313 Pequot Avenue for a variance of the zoning regulation section 32.5 to waive the flood elevation requirements. Permission not to elevate the structure. And the reason the variance is granted in one, a showing of good and sufficient cause. Two, a determination that failure to grant the variance would result in exceptional hardship to the applicant that are based on unusual or unique physical characteristics of the property in question that are also not shared by adjacent parcels. And three, a determination that granting of a variance will not result in increased flood heights, additional threats to public safety, extraordinary public expense, create nuisances, cause fraud on a victimization of the public, or conflict with the existing local laws or ordinances. That's it.
All in favor? Aye.
Vote that in. So everyone agree with that? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Joe? Okay. That's over.
That's a wrap.
Okay.